Good morning and welcome to a special bulletin here on the Angry Astronaut. As many of you have no doubt heard, RFA and Saxavord have suffered a significant setback as an engine explosion anomaly followed by a fire and complete destruction of the rocket has definitely put the future of this fledgling launch provider and this newly licensed spaceport in question. However, it needs to be emphasized, as most of us should know by now, that these sorts of things happen all the time with new rockets, especially to companies like SpaceX when they're carrying out early tests, as this one definitely was. But today I'm going to provide all of you with a unique perspective. Instead of just talking about the anomaly, I'm also going to talk about the time that I spent at Shetland, the time that I spent at the spaceport, and the enormous amount of effort and commitment that goes into all of this. And although this is a heartbreaking setback, I'm also going to explain to you why I believe that these companies are going to be able to bounce back from something that they certainly expected could happen in the early testing process of a brand new rocket and a brand new launch facility. So we're going to find all of that out, all the details of what I learned about this facility, the people involved, and why they're going to be able to push forward after this right now. Good afternoon and welcome to this special bulletin here on the Angry Astronaut, a story that I would prefer not to be bringing you, but overall a story that I think is still a very positive one, mostly in regards to the enormous amount of progress that this spaceport has made in a short amount of time, progress that was not completely undone by this event, not even close. Yes, the launch table probably suffered significant damage. It may even have to be completely scrapped, but keep in mind that RFA utilizes repurposed components for just about everything they build, and they threw up that launch table in the space of just a few weeks. So once the cleanup process is completed, I feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to move forward with a new rocket and a new launch table relatively quickly. So unlike any other journalist that's going to be reporting on this issue today, I'm going to show you all the facilities that were not destroyed in Monday's anomaly, and also the extraordinary access that I was granted during my 33-day stay on Shetland. Think about this for a moment. Would Blue Origin or SpaceX or anybody else have allowed an independent journalist to live side by side and eat alongside and talk on a regular basis with their employees, their technicians, their engineers? I think not. And yet this is what I got the opportunity to do for weeks. But let's go ahead and just start out at the beginning. Saxavord is located, as most of you probably know by now, on the property of what used to be an RAF base. And there are many sites of historical significance which the spaceport has the responsibility of preserving. But in addition to that, they also uncovered something much older than the RAF facility, a Bronze Age site. And while I was carrying out my tour of the spaceport, this was our first stop. So this right here again is the archaeological site, is that correct? What can you tell me about this, or what have they learned?
So, as you know from the island's history, there was an awful lot of Viking activity up here, but this predates that by a considerable amount. This is a Bronze Age site that they found, and what they actually found was evidence of burial, of cremation, some remnants of bone and carbonized material that were clearly from cremations of their people.
So it's a burial site.
Yeah. It's got to be some region of, thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And that would never have been found had we not been doing this work.
Right.
Nobody would have known this was there. When you think about all the activity that's been on this site prior to us doing this, with all the military activity that's been here.
Right.
And now, because of the work that's been done, that piece of history has been discovered.
That's really wonderful.
Which I think is
that's excellent. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
you'll be aware, of course, that Historic Scotland are very keen for us to preserve the existing buildings. So hence the amount of.
And what's this here? I'm sorry to interrupt
that was a former store for the RAF score site. So
Gotcha.
that's all that is. All that scaffolding is there is to try and protect it from collapse. So we're assisting with the protection of that. But it's not a cheap affair to have that much scaffolding around a redundant building.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so all of these concrete remnants that we see,
these are all the original radar.
right. Can you tell me about what we're looking at here and what it is going to be?
Yeah.
Because, RFA is going to be bringing their upper stage soon after they complete their testing. So, and then of course the integration, that sort of thing for the third stage. So, what are they, what's going to happen in here, and then what are other customers going to use this for?
So this rocket hall won't be complete in time for. Rocket Hall 1 won't be complete in time for RFA to use for integration. So we're temporarily fitting out Rocket Hall 2 so that they can get that work done, providing a temporary clean room, and then it'll be exactly that. It will be integration of stage 2 and stage 3, and then payload, and then once we've got all of that integration done, transfer of the launch vehicle to launch pad 1.
Fantastic. So in here, what do you feel like, or how is all of this going to be utilized?
So effectively, you can see that this is the main rocket hall area, and then we've got these two mezzanine floors which will carry office space above, with viewing down to the bottom. This side over here will be plant area, and then underneath on this side there will be another two large clean rooms. So any client will be able to integrate any size of system within this facility. Two large gantry cranes that will be over the top of it for moving equipment around.
Right.
We just want it finished.
Right.
We just want it finished, and then show our customers that we're ready to take them when they want to come.
And how many clients can you get in here simultaneously?
So ultimately, the aspiration is this rocket hall will feed launch pad 1. So the idea is that this is for a client. Now, whether they've got more than one launch vehicle system ongoing at the time, that's really down to what their planned activity is. So I anticipate that our current client could have 2, maybe 3 launch vehicles plus payloads being prepared in this space.
Wow.
So
yeah, I'd
say that was feasible.
Like if I compare this to what I saw in Cornwall, for example, I saw one clean room and one hangar for in one kind of integration area, and then one hangar. Basically, maybe a third this size, or maybe even smaller than that. Essentially designed for one, rocket at a time, from one client at a time. So what you're doing here is a lot more ambitious. And once again, that's to get to how many launches per year?
Well, ambition is 30 or 30 plus.
Wow.
30 plus launches a year is the ambition for Saxavord. How quickly we can achieve that depends on A, the client, and B, how quickly we can get construction completed.
Now, I didn't get an opportunity to tour the RFA launch table up close and personal, but you could get some really good shots of it from a variety of different vantage points all over the island. And even though most of this is probably wreckage at this point, although it's difficult to tell, sometimes very devastating looking fires can result in not that much damage to an actual launch facility, but in any event, we can see how the launch table is set up, once again using repurposed parts, and even the crane was not 100% complete, so a lot of this facility was actually not even there to be destroyed. Also, you can see the tank farm is completely isolated on the other side of the launch facility, and near as I can tell from the explosion, none of that was actually in any kind of danger. Now, from this perspective that was taken from a place called Scar Beach, which is the northernmost beach in the entire United Kingdom, you can see the flame deflector. It's actually very well depicted here as you watch the liquid oxygen flowing out of the rocket during a cold flow test, and you can see the chill line as well. In spite of my previous reporting that indicated that this was a wet dress rehearsal, it actually wasn't. Instead, it was a cold flow test, which only fueled up the rocket to the bare minimum prior to a static fire test. Consequently, the booster probably was not 100% fueled up for the 9-engine static fire that resulted in the anomaly that we just saw, reducing the amount of damage that was done to the facility. So let's check out the other parts of the hangar.
And this facility has got half the roof will be solar.
Oh, wow.
Half the roof will be water catchment. So we can, as you're aware, water catchment on the island is going to be key. Sustainability is going to be key for us. Our deluge system for LP1 takes a lot of water, and we need to make that sustainable. We need to make it clean, and we need to make it, back into the water course without any damage.
So, are you going to just be gathering rainwater? Is that going to be your primary source of deluge, or how are you going to do that?
No. So we've got aspiration to. There's 3 options for mains water. The first one is feed from the top of the hill. So from the top of Saxa, there was an old run system. So it was basically a rain catchment system, and run it down the hill. The other alternative is to pump from either Score end or Saxavord end, so domestic site end.
Right.
The issue with both of those pumping is you're pumping uphill and you're running pumps 24/7
right.
to sustain your needs. So how do we get to a sustainable solution for that?
Yeah.
So, the preferred solution is anything that we can do that is a green solution.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could go as far as say, right, well, we've got a massive pond out there. It's called the North Sea.
Yeah.
But then you're into desalination plants.
Right.
And then you're into the amount of power, and SEPA, our water authority, would be questioning whether or not we were doing the right thing by taking seawater and desalinating it. So, whatever we do needs to be massively sustainable.
Does the RFA have a plan for this launch? Are they just going to truck water in?
We've got the deluge system in place
right.
on LP1.
Right.
We've got water catchment there already, so they've got provision for that. It's been obviously ready and in place for hot fire testing.
Right. So where's the water? Do they just have it stored there?
So we've got a massive catchment under LP1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we filter what comes off of LP1 once it's been run off to make sure that anything we then put back into the water course isn't damaging the water course.
Intriguing. Yeah, okay, great. That's
hey, it rains up here.
Absolutely.
We're not short of a bit of water,
That makes it a lot easier. Thank you. I appreciate all that. And though I'm at risk of beating a dead horse over and over again here, this is how you avoid any sort of confrontations with environmental groups and any arguments as to whether or not any sort of wastewater violations may have been taking place during the operation of your deluge system. As long as you maintain constant communication with everybody who's involved, all the environmental agencies, everybody who could conceivably cause a problem for your spaceport in the future, and if your objective is to create a collaborative and friendly relationship from the very beginning, as opposed to trying to do things behind the backs of organizations like this, just seems to be a much better way of operating a spaceport, and one that is less likely to encounter legal problems in the future. And by the way, this is a rapidly developing story, and I got some recent photos taken about 30 minutes prior to me recording this from the actual launch site, and I am encouraged by what I see. Even though the facility has definitely been scorched, I don't see a great deal of evidence of any collateral damage around the launch table. It appears that no fire spread throughout the peninsula, which is very good for any environmental cleanups, and actually the fire seems to have only been restricted to one side of the launch table and not the entire thing. That doesn't mean that it isn't going to have to be scrapped anyway, but nevertheless, I'm encouraged to see that the fire looked a lot worse than the damage. Also, we have some statements from the UK Space Agency, quote, "As the commercial satellite launch industry continues to grow in the UK, we'll be seeing an increasing number of rocket engine tests. The priority is always safety, and Rocket Factory Augsburg and Saxavord Spaceport planned extensively for this potential outcome." And once again, if you look at the peat that immediately surrounds the launch facility, I would say that they did a really good job of restricting any damage that might have potentially spread from the launch table. The fire, once again, looked a lot worse than the damage actually was. Of course, we're going to have to see what happens in the future, but still, I am encouraged by these initial photographs in terms of what might be possible in the future. But let's continue with the tour of the hangar.
What we've got is we've provisioned 2 mobile gantry cranes for them to do their assembly. In the far corner will be a temporary clean room, so that's on its way. That will be installed very shortly.
Okay.
And then this facility will be spotlessly scrubbed, ready to receive the client's stages to build.
And this is just large enough to include the second and third stages?
Just large enough.
Okay.
Just long enough, yeah.
Gotcha. So everything they're bringing out here. Well, and did you design this with that in mind to have enough space for that, or did it just happen to be that way?
This was fortunately the right size.
Wow, that's great.
To take their,
what a great stroke of luck then.
Absolutely. So
that's
yeah,
fantastic.
temporary lighting going in at the moment.
Yeah.
Because it's a construction site, we need to get permission from building standards to allow us to use it at all.
Right.
So we have to be very specific about what actually will happen in here. So there'll be nothing that would be hazardous.
Right.
Hazardous activity.
Because obviously there's no fueling or anything. It's just a bunch of satellites going on.
Right. It's effectively been bolted together.
Right.
There'll be some low pressure testing, as in one bar, so safe testing,
Sure.
just to make leak proof. But again, all with inert gases, so nothing that can cause any risk. A growing, developing site, and I love it.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
love the fact that we are progressing.
So has RFA moved faster than you anticipated? Do you think, is that kind of why things have gone this way, or?
Yeah, I don't think anybody. I mean, their aspiration was always to be sort of like Q3,
right?
Launching or test flight,
right?
Pardon, test flight.
Sure.
But I'm not sure that anybody really anticipated they would get there that quickly.
Right.
And yet here we are. They are quickly moving towards that.
And speaking of moving quickly, within a couple of weeks of this tour, Saxavord had installed a new clean room in this facility for the integration of the upper stage of the RFA-1 rocket. And keep in mind, this hangar is intact. The second and third stages of RFA-1 are also intact, so not everything was destroyed in that test, far from it. I think that a great deal of progress can still be made while we're waiting to get a new booster, which, by the way, is under construction right now because RFA was planning to do 2 launches this year, not just 1, so a new booster is definitely on its way, and on top of that, building a new launch table might not be all that complicated either, given how quickly RFA erected the first one and how modular these things are designed to be. The thing that's going to probably consume the most time is the investigation of the explosion. What caused it, and how do we prevent it from happening again? That will probably delay things for several months at least, but still, I am cautiously optimistic based on what I have seen thus far. And so, having seen this evidence, I think that it's a good thing for us to just go ahead and take both Saxavord and RFA at face value with their public statements. Saxavord said, quote, "As it has done throughout the test campaign, Saxavord Spaceport will support its client RFA in its investigations following Monday's stage loss. All safety protocols were fully observed and the site evacuated prior to the test, meaning no RFA or Saxavord personnel were at risk." And RFA said, quote, "On Monday evening, RFA conducted a hot fire test of its first stage at their launch site at Saxavord Spaceport. This resulted in an anomaly that led to the loss of the stage. No one was injured in the process. The launch pad has been saved and is secured. The situation is under control and any immediate danger has been mitigated. We are now working closely with Saxavord Spaceport and the authorities to gather data and info to eventually resolve what has happened. We will take our time to analyze and assess the situation." And finally, perhaps one of the greatest concerns that some people are going to have about this region of Shetland, which is home to quite a number of unique species of wildlife, including otters, well, you can rest assured knowing that all the otters were safely away from the facility at the time of this test, simply because their habitat is located a long ways away from the launch table. You're going to see it here in just a moment. A bomb crater has served as a natural habitat for the otters for quite some time, and they actually have a subsurface tunnel that they run through, swim through, whatever, depending on the weather, and that's the avenue that they make use of to traverse the peninsula while they're hunting for food. Again, well away from RFA activities. So even though yesterday's events was definitely something that was unpleasant, something that is a significant setback to RFA's operations in Saxavord and to European spaceflight in general, I think we can rest assured in the knowledge that RFA also gathered a great deal of data from yesterday's test. They are going to learn what went wrong, and they're going to use that information to make sure that future tests go a lot better and that they can carry out a successful launch, in my opinion, sometime in early 2025. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please consider supporting this channel on Patreon, because that's how I was able to bring you all of this coverage from Shetland, and how I'm going to bring you coverage on the spot from other launch facilities such as Cape Canaveral here in September. And finally, if you're planning to visit Shetland yourself in the future, please make sure to stay at Belmont House on Unst. Martin will give you an incredible experience while you're staying there. He's an amazing cook, amongst his other talents. You will definitely enjoy your stay in Shetland if you stay at this property. And by the way, he is the sponsor of this video. Thank you very much for watching again, and as always, stay angry about space.